everybody, it's Romania Black, and I had to bust out Naoya. I figured with 2 episodes left, we're probably not going to see him or hear from him for a while, if we ever do again. I feel bad. I ordered this wig, like, right around the time Naoya started to come into the show, and then by the time it got here, he was dead, and I was like, no! So, I was like, I'm gonna wear it, and I'm gonna be righteously angry that my freaking cousin, Megumi, is getting all of the attention right now. But we are on episode 11 of season 3 of Jujutsu Kaisen. We are on the penultimate episode of this cour, and I'm pretty excited to see what's about to go down. I have not heard if I can watch the OP yet, so we're going to save the OP for next week. We're going to save the OP for the season finale. Or if I can't watch it before the season finale or the cour finale, then I'll watch it afterwards. So I will get to react to it. Don't worry. I will get to react to the OP and we'll talk all about it. Don't you worry. We'll do that next episode. But I have some comments that I want to talk about with episodes 9 and episode 10 before we dive into this. But Megumi coming into his own this last episode was a lot of fun. And I know that I have to do the side part because if I try to do these bangs with Naoya, I can't see, or you all can't see my eyes. And the point of a reaction is to see my face. So yeah. Anyways, that's what we're going to do. But let's dive into these comments and talk about them. I tried to organize them in terms of themes because some of y'all had specific things you wanted to talk about. So the first thing is Higuruma, Higuruma's been gone too soon. I already miss him immensely. And knowing now that I'm going to wait a freaking long time before the second cour of this season makes me frustrated. But anyway, so this one commenter, their name, I believe, is in Japanese, and I cannot discern how to say their name, so I apologize, but it's over on YouTube. You can check out their comment there as well for episode 9. They said Higuruma's surname does not literally mean sunflower, but it strongly evokes that image. The character he also represents the sun. In Japan, the badge worn by lawyers is designed to symbolize a sunflower as well, representing how a lawyer should always face the light, pursue justice, and seek the truth. That's why from the moment we were introduced to Higuruma, there's often light shining on him. Oh, it's clever! When he shouts, the flashback scene shows us a bright, glowing sun outside the window, reinforcing that imagery. And if you go back to episodes 8 and 9, knowing that, there are so many moments where Mappa created the sunlight, the light imagery. I'm sure the manga does that too. We'll get to that later this year. That's so exciting. I love that a lot. They also said the name Hiromi can be interpreted as having a broad perspective, which connects to his desire to open his eyes. His emotions are almost always expressed through them. I understand why he had to leave. Fans love him so much that if he stayed, it would be hard for people to pay attention to any new characters the author introduces. In a way, his presence would be overshadowing, so he had to step away. His light was too bright! I definitely feel, especially getting into Takaba and Reggie and all of this, I feel as if Hiromi is one of those characters where Gege was like, oh wow, I've created a really good character. I'm not ready to kill them off, so I'm just going to have them like walk away for a while. And then he'll probably use him again. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited that Higuruma didn't die, that he is going to be accessible for Gege later on if he chooses to use him. So I'll just have to count down the days until I can see him again. So there you go. Kaylin V8150 said, secondly, I'd like to say, they had a long comment on YouTube, that Higuruma fulfills a narrative role similar to Nanami and Gojo, which is that they hammer in Yuji's innocence and that he's a good person. Both Gojo and Nanami do this by saying that Yuji is a kid. It is their belief that he shouldn't be held responsible just because he's Sukuna's vessel. They both agree that anything bad that happens isn't Yuji's fault. It's the fault of the adults who are supposed to protect him. But they aren't here right now to reassure him or protect him anymore. And the Shibuya incident was a tragedy on a scale that neither of them could have prepared Yuji for. Their belief in him isn't enough anymore, and that's where Higuruma steps in. He points at the exact physical written law that says Yuji's innocent. It's a reassurance because it's not his subjective belief, it's a judgment that will hold up in courts. It's not just words from the mouth, there is tangible proof that he is innocent. And I love that. I love the idea that Higuruma carries on that legacy of Gojo and Nanami, and he's not dead, so he can still do that later on. Just pointing that out. So That's really exciting. But thank you, Kaylin V, for noting that. And then Christian Kansas said, fun fact about that insane fight sequence between Higuruma and Yuji. It was animated by one Chinese animator called Neon 41. He also animated a fight scene that looked amazing as this one in the 2025 anime called Super Kubo. He's an absolutely insane animator. One man doing that entire scene is crazy and amazing, and I think Neon 41 deserves his flowers because that's just eat it up. So good. Chef's kisses all around. Jay Collins has given me information that in their comment, I have been playing Pokemon since I was 8 years old. So I have been waiting to hear this information for almost 30 years. But they said, fun fact, if you ever wondered why in Generation 1 of Pokemon, which is red, blue, or yellow technically, you had to leave the Rocket Game Corner to go next door to exchange your coins for prizes, it's the same reason that Yuji had to go to an antique store. Since gambling is technically illegal in Japan, what the pachinko parlors will do is give you prizes like tokens that are worth far less than what you would win, but then you bring them to a pawn shop or an antique store and sell them and receive your actual winnings. I have wondered since I was 8 years old why, because in the United States, when you go to like a gaming, like I associated as a kid, I didn't know what pachinko parlors were. So as a kid, when I played Pokemon Gen 1, I thought, oh, okay, well, I go to like Chuck E. Cheese or like a little like restaurant that has gaming elements to it, like Dave and Buster's or something like that. And in those situations, the prize cashier is right there and there's all the prizes on the wall and you just exchange your tokens from your games for your prizes. And so as a kid, I just kind of assumed, oh, they just put them in different buildings. Okay, that's weird, but whatever. And now, 30 years later, I've learned the actual reason behind that. And it's like, the more you know. I was just so flabbergasted and amazed by that comment. So thank you, Jake Collins, for educating this woman in her mid-30s about something from Pokemon 30 years ago. Love that. Okay, we need to talk about Reggie. We need to talk about Reggie. So these next couple of comments for episode 10 are about Reggie. Potater and Sasha over on Patreon. It did not register to me that this was the scenario, but they were like, oh yeah, Reggie Star, Reggie Stir. And I was like, it's so simple. I was so caught up in Reggie looking very psychedelic and like Ringo Starr that I thought that was the reference. And I was like, oh, Gege getting to his Beatles era. Cool. But no, it was a play on words. It's a pun. We should not be surprised that Gege has chosen to use a pun. Shouldn't be surprised at all. No. So thank you for pointing that out. I will never forget it now. Alexander Q says, Reggie's powers are so much, but I love how ridiculous he looks. He looks like a peacock or a goose. He definitely looks like a goose, which I think somehow suits him. I do have to wonder how he knows exactly which receipt to pull out and where they all are. Imagine if he pulls out one thinking it's a car and he gets a dish or something. That would be hilarious. I wonder if he has like a photographic memory and he just knows where he's put things, and he's an old sorcerer, so he's had lots of, practice doing this. We're going to talk about that in a second. And then Alexander Q says, I'm so glad that it was Yuji who found Higuruma, because there's no way that Megumi, who doesn't hesitate to kill when he needs to, would have convinced him to use his points to add in the rule. That's really interesting because Anime Annie, who I'm about to talk about their comment, sort of adds to that a little bit, but I definitely think that Yuji meeting Higuruma was the perfect scenario because Yuji is the type of person that would reach a jaded Higuruma and kind of bring him back to the light, as it were. Anime Annie says, so I did pause on the close-up of the 2 receipts that Reggie sent at Fushiguro in the beginning to translate them. Each one was for a different amount of gasoline. In total, Megumi was drenched in almost 100 liters of petrol. That's crazy. But because I did that, I was able to figure out what Reggie's curse technique was pretty early on. I do want to know, though, if the receipts are things he had to buy himself, or if he could just gather up people's receipts of purchases they've made. I think it is the latter. I think that I think he just found receipts. And since his curse technique is about using contracts and creatively exploiting contracts, I feel like he saw all of these receipts and were like, this is easy. He's like, oh, back in the day, I had to go find scrolls and scripts and parchment and things that people have wrote written contracts, and what a bore. Here, y'all buy so much stuff. It's easy. So I feel like he just found a bunch of contracts, a bunch of receipts that people did to buy things, and he just started stapling and been like, okay, I'm gonna put the gas over here. I'm gonna put the objects I can use over here. I'm gonna put the things I can throw over here, and he just organized them how he thought would feel best to use. That's my theory, but we've got to have him battle Megumi this episode, so I guess we'll find out. Anime Annie also says they really managed to make those moments with Takaba truly humorous, but poor Takaba. I know for some shonen characters, we say they were born for shoujo, but forced to shonen. Takaba was born for comedy, but got stuck in the wrong genre. I can say for certain I don't want people cosplaying as Takaba this summer unless they do two things. One, use really good butt glue to fix that costume in place. Oh yeah. And two, attach a piece of cardboard with the noroi or curse on it as a modesty sensor. Look, I feel like you need to have a bodysuit and just paint one side of it. Just get a bodysuit and paint one side of it. Look, you may have been working on your abs all summer, and we appreciate that. That's good for you, good self-care, but just get a bodysuit and paint half of it. And that way things are all kept in place and you won't, have a wardrobe malfunction that will scar people. That's the idea anyway. And then finally, Anime Annie says, my shipper heart needed a moment to take in that little bit of smile when Fushiguro was sure that Itadori was okay because he managed to make Higuruma create a new rule. I will say, after Fushiguro's reaction to Takaba, I now need two things. One, Fushiguro to meet Higuruma, whose serious side seems a bit more on par with Fushiguro. So that kind of contradicts Alexandra Q's comment, where Alexandra Q's like, oh, they wouldn't get along. And Anime Annie's like, they might actually. I'm going to get this to throw to Huckleberry. And then two, Takaba to meet Itadori. Too much sunshine. Too much sunshine in one place. Everybody knows Yuji Care Bear stares everybody, and Takaba don't need no Care Bear stare. He is the Care Bear. Speaking of Takaba, speaking of Takaba, remember back in episode 3 when people were saying nothing happened except exposition? We had a character introduction. Alex Johnson says, if you were wondering whether Takaba was an ancient or modern sorcerer, if you remember from episode 3, the final scene of that episode is where we were introduced to his character. He's the stand-up comedian. And popping ads, he was still sane then. So I went back to episode 3, found the screenshots, and yes, he was on the stage. Nobody was listening to him. And then he gets berated by his manager that he's in his 30s. He's not a late bloomer. He has to be funny for it to work for him, and that he should just probably give up. And then the one guy that is a comedian reference, we talked about it in episode 4's intro, he is like, well, comedians that are older are kind of one of two things. They've either always been funny or they've deluded themselves into thinking they're funny. Which are you? And at the end of the episode, when we reveal that Takaba is a culling game player, he's like, well, maybe it's 50-50. No, maybe it's 70-30. So I'm like, now seeing him in episode 10, where he is delusional that he is just amazingly funny, and the entertainer, it's like, but maybe he's not. Maybe he's not delusional. Maybe he is actually funny. He was really funny in the episode, so maybe he just was on the wrong stage. Maybe Takaba was on the wrong stage, and he, like Higuruma, was meant to be a Jujutsu sorcerer all along, which is kind of weird because it makes Kenjaku kind of look like a good guy in a way, because, we talked in season 1 about, man, Junpei, if he had been born and able to go into Jujutsu High, maybe he would have found like his tribe, his people, and wouldn't have been bullied and could have flourished. And there was that discussion. And now with Takaba and Higuruma, it's like these guys were meant to be sorcerers. And so is Kenjaku kind of a good guy for exposing that? And that makes it a little bit more layered. So I don't know. But yeah, and so then Shimoyama for episode 10 says, we do have female judges in Japan, so that's good to know. Someone had commented that Judge Man was male, which he is, but they had kind of made the illusion that judges in Japan were male, so it's good to know that that's not entirely the case. This other commenter, who the end of their username is S4Z, says, it's so funny contrasting the solemn implications of Yuji's fight with Higuruma with the rolling cast of misfit whack job clowns that Megumi has to deal with at the exact same time. Again, I talked about it last week, but the fact that Megumi, who is this kind of straight-laced, very stoic character, has to deal with all of these eccentricities is just perfect. And then finally, I know I've talked a while, but y'all had amazing comments. Mastin Music for episode 10 says, can we talk about how Gege is surrounding Megumi with half-naked men in this episode? I mean, is Gege trying to tell us something? None of them are Yuji, so I won't accept slander. Genuinely, the only fully clothed characters in this episode are Megumi and Rumi, and he completely denounces her almost immediately. I mean, Megumi can handle a bunch of naked men walking around. What can we say? To answer your question about Cour 2, the only thing confirmed right now is that Cour 2 is happening. There are loads of rumors flying around, but my guess is that Cour 2 will probably happen next winter, so probably January 2027. There are also rumors that the director is changing for Cour 2, but I wouldn't stress because the guy who's rumored to take over is the same guy who directed episode 8. So either way, the show is in good hands. Yeah, I feel like Mappa and them know that Jujutsu Kaisen is like their cash cow, or one of them, so they're going to treat this series properly because they know that they need to for financial reasons. If art is influenced by anything, it's by money, for good or for worse. But that is good to know. I'm just so sad. I'm used to having a 24-episode season, and I'm used to it being twice this long, and I feel like I've taken advantage. I've taken for granted how much time with JJK I've had, because it's been 3 years, and I was like, and now I'm like, oh, now I gotta wait. Which I told the Discord, and I've told people, 8 months versus 3 years, can do 8 months. I can do 8 months. We can make that work. I think it will actually work out really well because if we time it out right, I'll look at the timing and it might be that the way we go through the manga, we can catch up to where we are by the time that the next cour starts in the manga. So that will be fun. That will be a good refresher. That will work out great. So I'll be doing some math after this season is over to determine that. But yeah, so thank you so much for your comments and your kind words. It's been so much fun to go over these comments with you all. It's been fantastic, and I'm looking forward to it for next week as well, and then to maybe have some comments saved for when I talk about the manga, things like that. But in any case, we're not going to waste any more time. It's been 17 minutes. We need to go. I couldn't help but notice when I pulled up this episode that we're starting with the title card, so are we skipping the OP? That might save us that problem, so anyway, we're gonna get started and see what all we get with episode 11 of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3, and we're gonna start this off here in 3, 2, 1, and Huck, go lay down, and I'll see you all on the other side. Oh, focus on Megumi, eh? Megumi gets all the attention this episode. Is how I would imagine Naoya would respond to such a thing. Oh, buddy. This episode makes me feel nervous for the future for lots of ways. Like, Gege just throws some information out that I'm like, I don't know about that. That makes me feel slightly concerned. So as I talk with you all, my dog is going to be like, throw me this toy. But I also want to go through, there was a lot of exposition tossed at us as the battle was going on. And I was like, this is a lot. You can't ask me to do two things at once. I can't be paying attention and processing and digesting the subtitles while also being like amazed by the animation before me. So that's why we do these discussions and go back and talk about it. So we've got that. To answer Anime Annie's question, because I know they're anime only as well when they commented, we do get to see Yuuta. It seems like maybe next week we're going to focus on Yuuta. A little concerned about Yuuta. I have some theories. I don't like where those theories are going. The very mention that Megumi had that Tengen and Kenjaku could be working together, that made me feel very uncomfortable. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. I don't like that. Why would we want to do that? So Megumi, why'd you have to bring up these horrible, but here's the thing. Megumi is not always correct. Megumi has been wrong. And so Megumi is just trying to work out some things and work through some things. So there is that. But I was like, I feel very uncomfortable with this suggestion that Kenjaku and Tengen could be working together. But Megumi thinks that that's not the case. So we'll see about that. Maybe Kenjaku wants to work with Tengen. But here's the thing. I don't know. Tengen seems, the way Reggie described him as the shut-in, Tengen seems very complacent with how the world is, and complacent with the cycles that the world goes through is how Tengen feels. And Kenjaku feels like he's not complacent, and he constantly wants to try to evolve humanity and change humanity to, is Kenjaku like the stereotypical villain that wants to better humanity, but the means in which they go through it are horrific and not good, and thus why they are a villain? I don't know. But it does seem to me from the outside that Tengen and Kenjaku have very different goals and very different viewpoints about humanity. So when Megumi brought up to Reggie, or when Megumi was monologuing internally about them working together, I was like, oh, but they seem very different, and they have very different goals. So that, like, really threw me off. I was like, now I don't like that. I don't like that. If Tengen's been tricking everyone and has been working with Kenjaku this whole time, these two non-binary forces, I'm like, I don't know how to feel about that. So let's just dive into this episode. We actually did get the OP, which is crazy because we started out just with the title card. I'm going to get these screenshots pulled up here so you all can see along with me. And we're going to look at those here in 3, 2, 1. Megumi's come so far. Megumi has come so far. I will say, from watching this episode, I feel in my heart of hearts, I would rather watch a Yuji fight than a Megumi fight, only because I feel like with Yuji fights, there is this kind of like hopeful atmosphere of Yuji being like, even when Yuji's depressed, even when Yuji is down on himself, Yuji is constantly trying to reach the other side and converse with the other side, like windbreaker style through his fists. And it's really fun and engaging to watch, and you kind of really get to see Yuji's personality shine when he battles, because he feels heroic. He feels like a hero. Megumi does not feel that way when he battles. Megumi is like constantly in this, which makes sense with the shadow motif that he has, in this just pool of ennui and pool of angst, and you're constantly like, it's like, is Megumi going to give up, or is he going to power through? And that's kind of like the tension that you get with his fights. So watching Megumi fights makes me anxious, because at one point I was like, I will give Megumi credit. He did not go the suicidal route of choosing that one Shikigami that is like instant death, instant KO. I was waiting for him to like go that route, to start doing those moves, and I was gonna be like, don't do it, Megumi. And he didn't. For like the first time in 3 seasons, he didn't even offer that as an option. And I was like, is this the power of love? Is this the power of love with Yuji that's keeping him from killing himself because he wants to get reunited with Itadori? Maybe. Perhaps. Or maybe it's his own self-confidence that he finally feels he's able to do something and not rely on the last resort. I don't know. I feel like that's... We're going to talk about that. We're going to put Megumi up here. Nobody. We're going to put Megumi up here. I can't get to that ball. His toy is like down on the ground, and I'm like, I can't get to that. So, but Megumi developing some self-confidence, so good for him. Good for Megumi. I do feel as if that's good for Sukuna, because Sukuna's always been interested in Megumi, and I think what has interested Sukuna is the fact that he's talked about in previous episodes back in season 1 that Megumi has lots of potential. But I think that throughout season 1 and season 2, it was Megumi holding himself back. Now that he's getting more self-confidence and realizing that he can do these things, maybe Sukuna's going to take more notice. We've talked about that prior, so we'll see how that works. But I am proud of Megumi for at least holding his own in this fight. I really was worried about it. Also, can we talk about the domain expansion? That is like, isn't that like a vertebrae? Isn't that part of a spine? And all of the cords coming off of it are like nerves, like the central nervous system. Isn't that what that is? Isn't that part of your vertebrae in the back? Is what it seems like. So that's cool. I like it tying to like his very body, essentially, which is really neat. There's one shot of here that I kind of want to combine it for the thumbnail. I can't decide if I want Reggie to be a thumbnail or Megumi. They're both so good. So, Esoteric. Esoteric. The meaning of esoteric, people have looked it up because it's like the first thing that pops up. Intended for or likely understood by a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest. So the specialized technique, basically we'll put Reggie over here. Reggie, ooh. So Reggie uses this esoteric technique, which being called a hollow wicker basket is just kind of hilarious. And also it's sort of, one, I think of hollow purple with Gojo, but two, I kind of think of like basket weaving, wicker baskets, kind of this like little like miscellaneous thing, which kind of ties to him owning certain objects. So hollow basket. I wonder, I like the idea that it's hollow because it's like there's holes in it. So maybe that's part of its effectiveness because, you know, like with the simple domain, it has to be simple for it to be effective. That's kind of the trade-off. So with it having holes in it, maybe that's the trade-off as well. I also love the idea that we have Reggie's techniques in red, Megumi's in blue. It's a nice contrast. But basically, this is a version of a simple domain, which is interesting. We've established that only certain like clans know how to use the simple domain. So that's interesting that Reggie is part of that. So is Reggie related to Miwa? Is that what it is suggesting? Probably not, but that would be kind of cool. And so it's mainly to guarantee to counter the hit factor. So the whole point of this in being effective if, for example, Reggie had been against Gojo. Because Gojo, when he releases Limitless, it's like, it's going to hit you no matter what. Sukuna is the same way. It's going to hit you no matter what. Great that Reggie didn't face Itadori. Just saying, that would have maybe not worked out so good. But it is meant to counter, it's meant to counter a one-hit KO. If you try to one-hit KO him, this is like using the Pokemon move counter, if we're going to talk about that. It's going to guarantee that you're not going to get killed instantly. But the holes in the wicker basket allow for Megumi, the frog tongue, to get in there. The domain amplification used by Jogo and Hanami in Shibuya as utilize a domain capable of harboring a guaranteed hit technique. So that's kind of the cool difference. Like Jogo and Hanami, they were able to like encapsulate in Gojo's domain, whereas Reggie's is a little bit different where it's just himself. It's not harboring the barrier, it's just harboring himself within the barrier. So that's kind of like a neat little difference between the two of them. And then he's like, why am I being hit? Also, can we establish and talk about real quick? My mind's going to be in the gutter for a hot second, so you're going to have to bear with me. And I know I'm talking about Megumi and bless his little teenage soul, but does Megumi kind of have like some BDSM kinks like hidden under the surface? Because he has a big thing about tying people up with those frog tongues, and then he ties up Reggie to beat him up. I'm like, Megumi, you might need to process some of this later on and talk with Yuji about it. So I was like, we kind of have a little thing about tying people up. Megumi, you might want to converse with somebody about that. Maybe talk it out. Intentionally left out curse techniques to leave space for Gojo's technique to flow into it, and thus neutralizing his Limitless. But Hollow Wicker Basket and Simple Domain are not capable of neutralizing a curse technique. So they work by neutralizing the barrier imbued with cursed energy, and such nullifying the technique's hit ratio. So the thing that again, Reggie's being tied up and just beat to a pulp. Megumi's whole thing also, so we have some perhaps BDSM stuff we got to work through. That's good. And then also the idea of him just physically fighting Reggie. I thought that was a cool little twist because Yuji, I always think of Yuji fighting with his fist. Yuji is very much a physical fighter. Like, let's get down to brass tacks. It's just mano-a-mano. It's just me and you. And I like the idea that Megumi was kind of similar to Yuji in this episode where it got down to it where he's like, I'm just going to fight you with my fists, which is a very Yuji thing to do. So that was kind of cool to see that comparison between the two of them. Boyfriend things that they both do. But Reggie's mistake is that Megumi's domain is still incomplete. It is an incomplete domain. meaning that it is not completed, and so there is no guaranteed hit ratio. He can use a Shikigami within it. He can store you in them shadows and knock you unconscious and thus nullify the fight, but he can't kill you in a one-hit KO scenario yet. They make a very big deal about the language used in this episode of saying the phrases like currently or yet or at the moment, saying like this could happen eventually where Megumi gets there, but it's not now. Fortunately for Megumi, because his domain is not 100% done, there's not the one-hit KO factor, and thus Reggie's attempt to like save himself from a one-hit KO doesn't matter because it wasn't going to happen. That was the problem. He was like, well, shit, that's not going to happen since it's incomplete. And Megumi just so serious. Also, when Megumi like gets weighed down by the pressure, our man, we're going to see some screenshots of him, looks exactly like Toji. And I was like, ooh, your Toji is showing Megumi. So yeah, poor Reggie, though, he got just beat to a pulp in this episode. And so he managed to force it closed by being in the gymnasium, but it was just to like get it in the moment. I also liked the shadows in this episode because it fits so well with Megumi's technique. And I also love the idea that it's just the use of water, of shadows, which is a great contrast to Yuji, because Yuji's all about light and fire. I mean, think of Shibuya and Sukuna coming out and like the fire of all that. Like, it's just two very contrasting elements, and it's poetry, and it works so really well. Love it. It's just extending his 10 shadows technique. I did like this and drawing out 100% of his latent potential. I want to go back to that line here where it says at the moment, because he's like, don't act like you've won. Yeah, so at the moment, I like that Tengen is narrating all of this, which again is the fact that Tengen has been narrating. It would be such a boss move by Gege to reveal that Tengen, our narrator, is an unreliable narrator, and that Tengen's been like the bad guy the whole time, or one of the bad guys with Kenjaku, or are they even bad guys? Maybe our Jujutsu Sorcerers the bad guys. No, but you know what I mean. That would be a cool twist. That Tengen, we've been usually the narrator of the story you trust and you rely on as being the protagonist or on the side of the protagonists, but if that's not the case, that would be a really cool twist, that Tengen's been working with Kenjaku this whole time. I hope that's not the case. I hope that's not true. But yeah, things being talked about like currently. Currently, the domain is incomplete, and it just extends the shadow techniques and draws out 120% of Megumi's potential. Which is good. That's a pretty darn good effective domain in all reality. So good for Megumi. But I do think that it's interesting that I feel like the incompleteness really helped in this battle against Reggie. Now, I'm going to be honest with you all. The animation in this one style, in this one scene, was not my jam. I talked about it. I feel like I got the cart before the horse because I talked last week, I believe, about I've actually talked about this style in a different series on my channel. If you've watched Frieren Beyond Journey's End Season 2, go to those reactions, and I'm going to talk more about it there. But I talked in that series about, because there's sequences that have this style here, and there are two distinct styles to me of anime right now that aren't just like this is the animation style of the mangaka that we're adapting and we're adding shadows and highlights and color and things like that. There are two distinct animation like styles that are kind of being promoted. And one of them I've seen in My Hero Academia. I've seen in this series as well, especially in season 2. And that's kind of like, I call it the charcuterie board explosion, where things explode, they become cheese cubes. Like the ground explodes, they become little cubes all around. It's stylized, it's intentional, it's a choice. I'm not a big fan of it because it just feels very like, it doesn't have a lot of movement to it. It just feels like blurp, and then it's there. So I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest. I don't want to say it's simple, but I like things a little bit messier. I like things grittier. If you're going to get kinetic with the energy of a fight scene, I like when fight scenes are kinetic and energized and the line work gets kind of rough and scratchy and it gets gritty and raw. I feel like the charcuterie board style of like, blue, there's all the cubist debris feels a little too perfect. I don't know. That's just my taste. Just my opinion. My taste. Some people really like it. And here you have that frenetic, like the line work gets wiggly. Like if you look at Reggie here, his leg is like this and it's noodly. I like the frenetic energy. It gives me like kind of a Ralph Bakshi vibe to it. However, I feel like the frenetic energy needs to have like a certain concreteness about it where you understand the movement and where it's going and what it's doing. In Frieren season 2, there's a scene that has this style of animation and you can follow the movements. It's still got this fluidity to it, but you can follow the movements. You can see the purpose behind it and everything, and it works very effectively. In this scene, because there's so much black background and you don't have anything to follow with it, it gets kind of hard to follow in a few points, and it almost feels too messy. For me, personally, I think they could have reined it in. I think the animator could have reined it in just a little bit and gotten a little more grounded to make it be a little more effective. But I get that it's this frenetic battle and you're trying to capture all these moments and everything, but it's not sloppy, but it's not my personal taste. I think it goes maybe a little too far in this episode in this one scene. But then it gets great after that, so I'm not going to complain. I'm just pointing it out, the differences between those animation styles. So basically, Reggie and Megumi's fight goes on, meaning the barrier is not imbued with a guaranteed hit technique. Reggie's so smart. He figures this all out in real time, like as it's going. I felt for Reggie. Anime Annie talked about how he had to go because he heard the puppy retribution was great. So Anime Annie talked in her comment about how that they were on board with Reggie's character until he attacked the dog. Once you attack the dog, you're not on the good list anymore. And so puppy retribution was this episode, and I think it's very fitting that the dog Shikigami he attacks at the very beginning is the one that takes him out. Like that is peak poetry right there in terms of Gege letting the dog get revenge, which is great. Love that for it. But I kind of did come to really like Reggie's character. I like Reggie's character a lot. I like how smart he was. I like how he kind of had this risk factor to him where he was going to take risks. He was like, I kind of want to see what's down in Megumi's shadow domain. I'm like, stay out. Only Yuji's welcome there. So, but he's kind of like, I kind of want to go down. The fact that he was wanting to take risks and see what it was, but then he had to talk himself out of it and like, no, strategize, said a lot for his character. And the fact that at the end of the day, he gave Megumi his points, and it's like, Megumi's like, why are you doing this? And he's like, just to see what happens, just to see what you do with them. Like that tracks for his character, right? And kind of makes Megumi go, it's kind of like a little last jab at Megumi being like, oh, you thought I was a total bad guy? Well, here, I have my points. Now what? One of those situations, and it works really well in this story. But yeah, so Reggie and Megumi. If he drenches me with the elephant in water, then it'll have my options and I'll probably lose. Because yeah, I would assume that Reggie has fortified that jacket and skirt or pants or whatever he's wearing with receipts upon receipts upon receipts. And maybe if the top layer gets soaked, he'll have some underneath, but that'll make things more complicated. And he's like, what do I do then? So his options are kind of limited. So I like that he's trying to figure out, what am I going to do in this scenario? But damn. Also, I wondered if some of the animation from season 2 was kind of reused here, because some of the fight sequence in this moment felt a little bit like Toji versus the one cursed spirit. I'm just saying it felt a little similar. So if you told me they reused some animation foreground and just replaced Megumi and Reggie from Toji and them, I wouldn't be surprised. It's still effective. I'm not saying it's totally bad, but it's just noticeable. So their fight keeps going. I can't believe I said Neon Genesis in the reaction. I meant Revolutionary Girl Utena, damn it. I meant the movie, damn it. My brain needs to get on the right wavelength, but this was giving me Revolutionary Girl Utena flashbacks in the best way possible. But man, What's also cool is that Gege sets this up where you're like, why is he sinking things into the shadows? Like, to know how this works is that you have the domain here, right? You have the domain, and here's where our little fight is happening between Reggie and Megumi. And down here is just like this darkness that Megumi can pull from, which everything symbolic about Megumi and his domain is just, everything is so symbolic. The idea of this sinking darkness, this sinking depression around Megumi that he pulls from the shadows, but the fact that this has weight to it, is weight that also pulls, it's almost like Megumi is shackled to his own domain and he can pull from it and have those weapons come up, but at the same time, anything that goes down into the shadows is also weighing him down. So leave it to Megumi to create a domain where it has that kind of feature to it. Leave it to Megumi to do that, right? I think it speaks a lot for his internal character. But Reggie immediately figuring out, oh, I have a theory. Either one of two things. Either there's only so much space in here that you can store things, and I'm just going to keep filling it with stuff till you have no space left and it's going to use up your domain. Or if it's limitless, then it's going to still weigh you down and I'm going to keep putting more stuff there until you can't bear the weight of your own darkness. And then it'll stop the domain, which is also something very creepy, is that this gives me one of the scariest images to me is, have you ever seen that thing where it's like the little bit of the iceberg and then you see how far down it goes? That creeps me out every time I see it. It really freaks me out. I don't like it. I don't like that imagery because it's like, I don't like being out in the open ocean because you can't see the bottom. It's sort of that fear of not knowing where it ends. That creeps me out. I'm like, So there's kind of that vibe with Megumi's domain that is pretty scary, right? So anyway, all of these things are going down into the domain. He's like, for a while now, I had to reinforce my footing with cursed energy to avoid getting sucked in, which I think is very smart that they point that out. They point out like he's got the little reinforcement on the bottoms of his feet. That's super cool. And he's like, I was wondering what would happen if I got sucked in. The whole bottom of this domain is your shadow, right? From this point on, Megumi looks so much like Toji, it's not even funny. Like, he has his mother's hair and her jawline, but then everything else is very Toji, very Zenin. And he's like, are you able to store and remove yourself and your objects? That's pretty convenient, but which one is it? And so then he goes through the two options, figures out which one it is. The latter was spot on. I've turned the design of your domain against you. And he's like, how can you handle it? Can you still produce your Shikigami? He's like, I love that Reggie is just trying to eliminate options and he's in survival mode. And honestly, if I were Reggie, I would be doing all of these things to try to stay alive. So he's like, I'll just need to mind my footing and keep adding weight until you're crushed. And then this shot here, where he's like, even if it's incomplete, a domain is still a domain. My shadow is above us too. That shot, that face Megumi makes, it's probably too big for a thumbnail, but that's one of my favorite shots of Megumi in a while. It very much like, because when Megumi activated his domain in the last episode, I was like, oh damn, season 1, he was like, screw it, let's go. And this episode, he was like, let's go. And I was like, oh, he's matured, he's got there. That crazy sorcerer business is still there. It's still there, and he's like, bitch, my shadow's above me too. This whole domain is shadow. FYI. So, I love that. I love that Megumi's like, bitch, you've not stopped me. And then having the elephant show up. The elephant is like one of his best, which I say that every Shikigami's proven their weight in this. That looks like Toji. That looks straight up like Toji. The hair down, you might as well just, like, his Toji showing so much in this episode. Like, just the fact that it's all weighed down. His Toji Zenin is showing. I'm proud of Megumi, but man, And then poor Reggie. Poor Reggie. Also, it's not helping me to think about the Beatles with the elephant because I'm getting very Lonely Hearts Club vibes. And he's like, which one of us is gonna get crushed first? Then we do the OP, as you would have it. Now, I'm not gonna lie. Whenever Tengen started talking about the airplanes and the G's, I was wondering, because we talked last couple episodes about Kenjaku dropping a bomb on the colonies. I was like, is this something Kenjaku is... Are we doing kind of a 2-in-1 scenario where we're talking about the metaphor of the G's and of Megumi? And are we also planning to drop a bomb? Is that happening at the same time? Is this like a 2-for-1 thing Gege's doing? I don't like that. But it appears at the moment to just be a metaphor. And I'm like, okay. This episode makes me nervous. This episode really worries me. So I'm like, okay, cool. So it says a typical human will lose conscious at 5 to 6 Gs. Well, again, go watch Steins Gate. That's all I can say. And so 2.4 tons. And as Fushiguro weighs 60 kilograms, how much does Fushiguro weigh? What is kilograms to pounds? What is that conversion? 60 kilograms. That doesn't feel like a lot. Oh, bitch! I weigh like 20 pounds more than Fushiguro. Well, How? How is he only 132 pounds with those abs? How? Does he have like 0% fat on him? How? But muscle weighs more than fat. Gege, I'm calling shenanigans. Is he like, how tall is Megumi? How tall is Megumi? How tall is he? 5'9"? Bitch, there's no way. I'm 5'8". I'm like an inch shorter than Megumi, and I weigh like 25 more pounds than that, and there is no way that man has those abs and is only 132 pounds, unless he has like 0% body fat. I call weight shenanigans. I do. I don't know. Anyway. So he's like, in order to prevent his blood from pooling in his legs from the high Gs, just the thought of that, the thought of blood pooling and blood clots and everything from all that is insane. But what I wanted to talk about, in order to prevent the blood flow from leaving his brain, he was lowering his posture and reinforcing his body with cursed energy. So I want to talk about that real quick, in that Megumi, in lowering his posture. There is an aspect of that is so fascinating, because the concept that to maintain control and be on top, Megumi has to put himself in kind of this, I'm projecting and speculating a lot, but putting himself in kind of this submissive pose of like lowering his posture to the ground. It almost looks like he's kneeling the entire time, which again, if you're going to go the route of like Sukuna having interest in Megumi, look, I'm going to go ship her out for a hot second, bear with me, but if you ship Sukuna with Megumi, which is a problematic ship in itself, but if you do, then all I'm saying is I'm seeing the vision of, Megumi being power bottom establishing in this moment with the whole like lowering his posture because it feels like he's kneeling, and then I was getting like, okay, well, Sukuna's interested in him, then that would be like Sukuna's up on the like top of the pile of corpses in his throne. I was going through a lot of scenarios in my mind when this was going on, being like, oh, interesting. So Gege's feeding all of that for us, the audience. Cool. But I do think it's interesting, regardless, shipping not included, of the idea. I feel like it also says a lot for Megumi's character in general, that him being in this kneeling, prostrating position to be in control says a lot for how Megumi feels about himself, where again, we're talking about his self-confidence. He has these powerful Shikigami, this domain, all of this ability as a sorcerer, but he's still visually in the series, and I understand why he has to kneel down. It's the weight, it's the gravity, it's the G's, but it's just the way Gege shows, almost like visually symbolizing that Megumi is not fully at his top peak potential yet. He's getting there. He's getting there slowly but surely, but he is not at peak potential. He has not peaked, which is good because we're not done with this series. We don't need him to peak yet. No. So yeah, so Reggie dealing with this elephant, the fact that he like broke his fibula, broke his like bone in his heel, that sounds awful, like, blah, that's just crazy. They did a great job animating this scene too, by the way. It looks amazing. I love the reds, I love the pinks, I love the shadows. All that looks really, really good. And then you contrast it with Megumi, who looks like Toji so much in that moment. Looks like him, the possibility of them being crushed to death at any second. I just love the theme of the weight of this battle. You have the weight of these two characters nearly being crushed in this moment, and then you cut over to Higuruma versus Yuji, and it's the concept of them in the air, light as feathers, flying through the air, weightless, fighting each other. It's a cool contrast. Also, you had episodes 8 and 9 being about Yuji. Here's the thing. When we started episode 7, I'm a big fan of a bookmark. I like a nice, clean-cut bookmark moment. You started out episode 7 with Yuji and Megumi entering the colony and getting everything set up. Episodes 8 and 9 were Yuji and Higuruma's fight. Episodes 10 and 11 were Megumi and Reggie's fight. And now we've bookended this. And then episode 12 looks like it's going to be about Yuuta. So we've kind of wrapped it all up, seemingly. But not really, because now what's Megumi and Angel... Well, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. But that makes him look so much like Toji in that moment. And he's like, I screwed up. I could have won if I'd had my trucks in reserve. I also like that we see the receipts getting wet from the elephant and their ink starting to dry. And then, yeah, poor Megumi. So his trump card he wants to activate. I'm assuming it was one of the trucks maybe. We don't ever really find out. Which I give Gege props. Because a lot of times in Shonen, it's like they show the trump card, the final card, and it's very cliche. And if we don't get to see Reggie's trump card, if it wasn't the cards that were saving him, then I do feel that's kind of fun that Gege is like, oh, I'm not going to show you his trump card because it doesn't matter. He's going to die anyway. The dog's going to kill him in the end. So what does it matter? So I kind of like that choice. But yeah, what if I'm stuck forever in his shadow after he dies? And again, Reggie going through all these options. He's like, what if I slip into the shadows? Can I activate my trump card there? Am I going to be able to breathe in there? What is it going to be like? Am I going to just die as soon as I go down there? What's going to happen? And then I'm thinking, if I get stuck down there in the shadow, what if he dies and I never get to leave? What if it like traps me in this void forever? Like, these are all very good questions to be asking in the moment in this battle, and it's insane because Megumi looks like he's struggling just to keep everything going. But Reggie, the fact that Reggie's struggling and still having time to think about all this speaks a lot for his character. Speaks a lot for Reggie and his effectiveness as an antagonist against Megumi. He's like, what is it like inside of his shadow? And then he's like, nah, he's like, I probably shouldn't try to go in there. That's too risky. But then he ends up going anyway. I love this shot here. The two shots where he's like, I'm going to pull out my trump card and activate it. And then you have Megumi, again, looking like Toji, always. And then that shot of Reggie where he says contractual recreation. They did such a good job of animating Reggie and Megumi this episode. I freaking loved it. Also, I like the blue tones with Megumi, again, to contrast with the red from Yuji. But also, if the cursed energy is oftentimes reflected with this kind of like teal color, like the teal light that surrounds Nanami's blade, the teal light that surrounds Yuji's fists, the teal light coming from the domain. It's the cursed energy motif getting represented works super, super well. But yeah, and then we show him sinking. Again, the idea of it reflecting Megumi just being in this sinking, endless shadow. With everything Megumi has gone through, by being abandoned by his father, by having and losing his foster sister, and fighting for her, from Gojo, from watching Yuji, the guy that he clearly cares about, rip his own heart out and die, and then come back to life, and then go through all of this stuff through the last season and a half. Like, just the angst that Megumi has within him and this inner darkness, having a tangible physical representation is so neat. Also, again, relating to Sukuna, wondering if it taps into like that water, because if you look at Sukuna's like mass throne of bones, it's surrounded by like blood, you know, so is that kind of like Megumi's domain as well? There's lots of things to think about in the comparison between the two of them, and we only have one more episode until we have lots more time to think about it as I go through the manga. So yeah, and then Megumi being like, don't dismiss the domain yet. Wait till he's dead. Make sure that he's dead. Make sure, like, Megumi was intending to kill him in the domain. Make sure he's dead. Make sure he's drowned. And then go from there. And he's like, I can expel what's in my shadow from there. But then Reggie gets brought back to life from the car. Damn RGU. And I like this like twist to his like technique where he says, as long as I don't give them a command, I can put them out into reality and then use them later. That felt kind of like Kirara for a second. It felt like it was tapping into a little bit with Kirara's technique, because hers is like giving a stamp on something and making it have like an ability or a property or a connection. And Reggie being able to give things commands and not commands was really cool. I liked that. So yeah. I hadn't given the cars a start command, though. I didn't want them disappearing after all. I could still issue them a command, but saving my life was one that he ends up giving it. And then him saying, you're strong, but I'm stronger. And then he has the trump card. So the trump card, oh my gosh. This episode was a lot to go through. The trump card's the house. I feel like sometimes I say things in the discussion and people comment and they're like, well, actually it was this. And then I figure it out in my own brain as I'm going through the episode again and say it again. I'm like, don't worry, I'll get to it. You just gotta give me a moment. So it was the house. The house is the trump card. The house is giving me a lot of Dan to Dan vibes. If you've watched that series, I was thinking of Dan to Dan the moment it showed up. I was like, oh, there it is. But yeah, but I'm stronger. I feel, in hindsight, I feel like Reggie was maybe the stronger of the two, but the problem is he underestimated Megumi's resolve. He underestimated two things. One, he underestimated Megumi's resolve, and two, he made the mistake of thinking that Megumi was not above lying. Because I love the contrast between Megumi and Yuji, whereas we've established Yuji is innocent and honest. Yuji does not tell lies. He's not great at telling lies. You can instantly tell he's telling a lie, and he's innocent. But then you have Megumi, and Megumi is easily capable of lying. Easily. He's a liar, and he's very morally gray. Very morally gray. He's capable of lying like it was nothing, and he has no qualms with killing you if it's to serve a purpose. I like that. I love the idea of the contrast at play, because on the surface, especially like when you see episode 7, Megumi and Yuji work so well together and they're great foils for each other and they're very compatible with one another. But then when you get them by themselves, you really see the difference between those two characters. And it's kind of fascinating. It really is, to see how they have differences in how they think, how they rationalize things, how they fight. It's very interesting to watch. But yeah, so Reggie uses this house. I like that he calls it just a structure. Like he's from the past, so he doesn't quite know everything. And he's like, get crushed! Get crushed seems like the new phrase to say. But then as it's about to go down, he's like, what happened? And then he's like, is the brat trying to strangle me? Which, Megumi's got a kink for that. True. But he's like, no, that's not right. He's like, what ended up happening? And what it was... The question I have is, with the pool in the gymnasium, did Megumi go into this gymnasium knowing there was a basement heated pool underneath it? Did he do that? Did he know going in that there was that happening? Or was he... Because I feel like it is the biggest coincidence, and what a stroke of luck if the pool and stuff just happened to be under. I don't know enough about Japanese community gymnasiums and whether they all have heated underground pools. That is not the case in the US. That is not the case at all. There's like only one pool within like a 50-mile radius of me that I can go to. But I'm very curious to know if Megumi had that in mind when he walked into the gymnasium, that the pool was there as a kind of like backup, because he knows Reggie's receipts won't work if they get wet. So did he choose the community gymnasium knowing there would be the pool, or was it just a happy circumstance that ended up working out in his favor? Because Megumi is blessings. His name does mean blessings. Toji gave him that name. So is that just tied to him being lucky? I don't know. But it was a stroke of luck that it ended up working out, where the pool was there. Reggie's receipts are soaked, so he can't use it. And it gave Megumi time to like get himself together after the domain was destroyed. And then I love this showdown between the two. I love the showdown where they're on opposite sides of the pool and they walk around to face each other. My two options were because Reggie's like, can you use your Shikigami now? And Megumi's like, no. Can you use your receipts? And he's like, no. So Reggie was being honest. Megumi was not. Megumi was very much lying. He could still use the dog. Because he hadn't used the dog inside the domain, if you noticed. He used the elephant, he used Nu, he used the frogs, he used them inside the domain. So when the domain left, they had already been used up, but he never used totality. So totality was always left in the wings until it could spring up and attack him at the very end. Very smart, very clever, and also kind of goes with the wolf motif that Remi says, the wolf motif of Megumi, being this wolf, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, so I liked them being on the other side. As they were walking around, and Reggie's like, he let his technique recover after exhausting it with his domain, right? And so that's when he asks him, I'm betting you can't produce any Shikigami anymore either, right? And he's like, that's true. You do understand what comes next, don't you? He's like, he'll use a Shikigami other than that dog, but none of them can deal a decisive blow. That's what was throwing me off, because at first, when he's like, what comes next? I can't use my Shikigami. I thought, okay, well, they're going to fight. They're going to fight with their fists. They're just going to have like a fist fight to the end, I guess. But then when he said, oh, well, he could use another Shikigami, but not the dog, I was like, well, the only other Shikigami I can think of that he's not used, except for the dog, is, I always get the name wrong, and so I apologize. It's like Mahjong, or is it Mahjong? But that's a game. But the one Shikigami he has left is like the suicide mission Shikigami, where if he uses it, he's gonna die. So when they said that, I was like, let's not go there. We've done really good about not going there. And I really thought he was gonna like go in front of Reggie and do the move, and it was gonna be, I was like, surely not. And then as they fight each other, in that moment, that's when the dog shows up. And as Reggie's coming towards him and is fighting him, then the dog comes up and boop. And it happens so fast. It's just like, done. And just takes that chunk out of him. Which is kind of ironic, because it looks like a knife carving itself out of Reggie, which Reggie stabbed the dog with the knife. I'm all about animals getting retribution. And the fact that he attacked the puppy and the puppy got to fight back at the end, it's poetry. But man, it's just like, it's a lot taken out of him. You know what? Sometimes in shonen though, I wonder, I know they use cursed energy to imbue their body so they don't take the hits as much as they can. But like the fact that Megumi is stabbed like 3 times, I guess they weren't critical points, and Reggie's missing a whole part of his lung and heart probably. So, okay. Fair enough. Oh, there's a lot of blood at this point in the episode. He's like, demon dogs isn't weak enough to let that stop it. And then it all comes back where he's like, sorcerers are all liars. Which, again, makes me nervous, because that line about sorcerers are all liars. Well, not Yuji. Yuji's not a liar. He's tried, but he's not very good at it. This makes me worried, because I'm like, if Tengen turns out to double cross them all, I'm gonna be mad. If Tengen turns out to be working in conjunction with Kenjaku, that will be brilliant. Brilliant. Would not have seen it coming. But I will be so mad, because I'm like, why are you doing this, Tengen? They've been working for you all these centuries. Why are you doing this to the Jujutsu sorcerers? Why are you doing this to humanity? I can't see Kenjaku and Tengen working together, but then at the same time, I kind of can, and I'm like, these non-binary regents trying to come up and do all this. Yep. So then we get the halfway point, which is crazy that we're at the halfway point with this. He's like, you allowed me to convince I can't use the dogs anymore. I loved the water slowly tinging red, and then you see the blood coming into the water, and he's like, to think that I'd let a modern sorcerer and a brat get the better of me. That, and then we cut to Megumi. Megumi looks so good in the blue with the water. That's his shade. Blue is Megumi's color. He's like, even if I wanted to flee, Nu can't fly with someone for very long. I've struggled with that before. That's a good shot. I thought about that for the thumbnail too, of Megumi with that on him. He looks really good there. He looks less like Toji now his hair's puffed up. That shot though, what a shot. I feel like that's a movie reference. I feel like there's a movie that has a similar scene to it where there's like a body by the pool and it's bleeding into the pool. If you ask me what movie it was, I can't tell you, but I feel like I've seen that referenced, and since Gege likes movies a lot and referencing them, it feels appropriate, but that's such a shot. Man, how about that? And so he's like, tell me about Tengen. Oh, that shot too, where it's just like the blood coming off of Reggie's body and like Reggie's glorious hair going to the pool. So sad. But he asks about Tengen, because Megumi's like, I want to know about him. And he's like, Tengen? He's like, oh, right. That shut in. They would still be alive, wouldn't they? So Reggie does not think very highly of Tengen. In fact, Reggie refers to Tengen as a shut-in, which is the most extreme use of that word, honestly, because Tengen's been, inside their barrier for how long? He's like, oh, that shut-in. And then Megumi's like, yeah, that's enough. So Megumi says Reggie says Tengen's claims about the Culling Games goals were a bluff. And so I should probably consider the possibility that Tengen-sama and Kenjaku are secretly connected and lied about their goal, but that doesn't seem to be likely from his reaction. Well, I don't know. Don't count it out, because even Reggie admitted that their whole relationship with Kenjaku was kind of just flippant. He's just like, yeah, I didn't really have much of a relationship with Kenjaku. It just, we both make contracts. Which that makes so much sense now that we think about it. Reggie's whole deal is about making contracts and recreating them and bringing them back. So if Kenjaku came to him and was like, let's make a deal, of course he would say yes, because that's literally up his alley. Like, he has nothing to lose by doing that. That's part of his technique. But I don't know. I mean, Reggie may not have known a lot about Tengen, but this idea of Tengen and Kenjaku working together, I am a little bit worried about it, because there's just something in the back of my mind that the moment Megumi mentioned that, I was like, oh, I don't like that. But I could see Gege being cruel and doing something really bad with that. So I was like, oh, I don't like manifesting that. I don't like that at all. I don't want to think about it. But I'm going to be thinking about it for like the next 6 months while I wait for part 2. So this shot of Reggie too. Anytime the blood pooling, I've seen it in Chainsaw Man, I've seen it in other series, it just looks like, because I know the Japanese flag is like the white with the red sun in the middle, the pool of blood forming a perfect circle just makes me think of that. So that's a crazy shot as well. Damn. I might try to mix that shot with Megumi would that be too spoilery? Might be too spoilery. But in any case, we'll find a way. And then he transfers the points over to Megumi, who looks quite surprised that Reggie would do that. He looks very surprised that Reggie was transferring the points. And I like Koguni's like, okay, let's do it. We're going to talk about Koguni in a hot second, because Koguni doing some things I didn't know he could. You've received 41 points from Reggie Star. So, and receives 5 more points when Reggie dies. And he killed the other guy. So right now, Megumi, let's talk about this. Yuji is sitting at a very strong 1 point that was given to him from Higuruma. And Higuruma, subsequently, also has 1 point. Megumi has 51 points. He has 51 points because he got the 41 from Reggie, and he's received 10 from Reggie dying and the one guy, the wrestling dude guy dying. And then Yuuta, which we're going to talk about, has at least 35 points. Does he have 35 after killing the one pillar of the stalemate? The guy that looks, we'll talk about him in a hot second. Does he have 35 or does he have 40? In any case, let's just assume he has 35. That means that we have 80 points, 86 points. We have 87 right now. We have 87 points between Yuuta and Megumi and Yuji. If by chance he manages to kill those other 3 sorcerers that are part of that, then that would be over 100 points. Because that would equal, you would have 97 and then you'd have 102. If you manage to do that. Okay? If Yuuta manages to kill the 3 sorcerers that are left. The one thing that kind of sucks is that we're going to talk about Yuuta here in a little bit. We might as well just talk about him now, I guess. But did this whole part about the colony that Yuta's in, was it before or after the point transfer? That's the question. If he was killing the sorcerers before the point transfer rule came into play, then it's like, okay, he didn't know. That makes sense. Also, I guess with Yuuta, we could consider the fact that these sorcerers are not likely to give their points away. But maybe we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. We're going to come back to that here in a hot second, but I want to get through this part first. And so Megumi's like, why? I feel like Megumi is constantly amazed at people's kindness, at people's actions that are not cruel. Because Megumi has been around cruelty his whole life, in essence, since he was a little kid. Whether it's the cruelty of the Zenin clan trying to buy him out, or his father, like, abandoning him. In his mind. We all know the backstory, but in Megumi's mind. Gojo getting sealed, about Yuji's death, Sukuna and all this. Like, Megumi's been constantly surrounded by this. And so he always feels kind of shocked when somebody does a gesture of kindness. And he's like, oh, why did you do this? What are you plotting? Like, he doesn't consider it a kind gesture. He just says, you're planning something. And Reggie kind of smiles at that. And he's like, what an awful thing to say. He's like, I'm dying. And he says, it's my good deed before I die. I'm just a spectator. I was never close friends with Kenjaku. Which tracks with Reggie's character that he's established in this short amount of time. He's just been taking advantage of the moment and living life. That's what he's doing. That's what he can do as a sorcerer. And it tracks for his character. He's like, I wasn't friends with Kenjaku. I don't know this Tengen guy. He's like, I was just having fun. Whatever that version is. And Megumi, he's like, I think doing this will make things interesting. Reggie, if you've noticed... He says, that's my intuition. If you've noticed with Reggie, he has all the receipts. Reggie's not a... You can define waste in certain ways, but I feel like Reggie is not one to waste an opportunity. Oh, I can get this thing, I can get this thing, I can this thing. Why would I waste a chance to have it? It's all mine. So the idea of him giving Megumi the points, he's like, why would I squander this opportunity? Or on Drag Race, why would I squabble this opportunity? Yeah. And so he's like, you did kill me after all. Let fate toy with you a bit and die a fool. That's such a line. What a line. Like, Reggie went out like an icon, bleeding into that pool. Went out iconic. So then... so we got to Takaba, who... Takaba's ability is kind of insane. When we talk about, when I tell you all that we're setting up things that make me go, ha, 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 nervous laugh, Takaba makes me very nervous. Takaba makes me really nervous, actually, because he doesn't know what his own technique is. He has no idea. He's just like, things that Takaba is delusional. Very delusional, right? I love that this guy is just like when he comes out the window, he's like, did I get him? This is some Ralph Bakshi crazy shit right here. Where he's like, did I get him? He's like, don't let your guard down. He's in like this military dress. This is insanity. This is Gege's like psychedelic mushroom dream right here. Takaba is just like Gege being like, I want to do whatever I want to do. This is like Cool World madness in this moment. Mm-hmm. And he just walks through, and then he walks towards him, and then he's back in the regular costume with just the singed hair bun. This is madness, is literally Takaba's character. And I don't blame this one guy for being like, I'm done. I can't. He's like, he just like takes it and it slides off of him. And he's like, why are you covered in lotion? Can we talk about the double entendre of this joke, the innuendo, where he's like, it could be sauce. What kind of sauce is clear? What kind of sauce is clear? And he's like, shut up and die. I love it. He's like, I hate you. I can't stand it because you won't die and you're just making this so hard. And then he goes to lick it and then he stops and I'm like, Was it sauce? Was that clear liquid that he's covered with sauce? Y'all know what I'm talking about? Do I have to spell it out? Do I have to use the C? Do I have to use the U? Do I have to spell it out for you? That's so gross. He's like, wait, is this really sauce? And he's like, damn it! It's crazy! I asked my brother, because I told my brother I was watching Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3. He's like, I've read the manga. He says it. He's very defensive about it. I don't know. I'm sure by the time I finish the series, we'll have more to talk about with it. But I was like, okay, I've gotten to Takaba. And he like sort of like looked over to me. And I was like, I don't want you to spoil anything because you know things I don't know. But I said, do you find Takaba, because we were talking about this in the Discord, some people find Takaba annoying, some people find him funny. I find him hilarious. I'm like, do you find him annoying or funny? And my brother just went, both. And I was like, that's fair. That's very fair. So I find Takaba hilarious, but he is messed up. And his ability is absolutely insane. He's like, I've blown him up several times. I've literally killed him 5 times. So how does he have little damage? And the thing is, when he said in the last episode, 0 damage, the thing that's scary is he imagined he wasn't hurt. And so he wasn't. The things he finds funny are reality with him. That's crazy. We're going to talk about that. That's insane. So he has so little damage. And then he's like, do you hate sauce? And then, okay, Mappa, at this point you've given up. You're not even trying to make the costume look 100%. You're not even trying anymore. I'm just going to imagine that it's a bodysuit. That's all I can do. And so he's like, he hasn't shown any signs of using the reverse curse techniques. No! This is the problem. He hasn't used anything like that. He's like, I don't get it. And then, okay, so with Kazenoki and his little Kogani, when did this happen? Is Kogani a shipper? Was Kogani shipping Reggie and Kazenoki? Was that happening? Has Kogani been shipping Kazenoki and Reggie? Because why on earth would he pop up out of the blue and be like, oh, hey, Kazenoki, just letting you know, Reggie Star-sama has just died. And then he was like, oh. And then Takaba's like, hey, see, your friend died, which is terrifying in itself, the fact that he's smiling about it. And I know you all want Yuji to meet Takaba, but Takaba, even though Takaba is funny and full of light and seeming like delusional positivity, Takaba also does not seem to care that people have died or felt the weight of such things. So that worries me a little bit because Yuji feels the weight of like a paper cut someone gets. Yuji feels the weight of that and he's like, oh man, I'm sorry that happened to you. And it's like, but Takaba does not seem to feel the weight of anything. It's because death has no consequence right now because he's not being affected by the attacks. It's all just fun and games. So I don't know how their meeting would actually go down. But was Kogani shipping these two? I mean, people have talked in the comments about Kazenoki and Reggie being kind of a ship, and I see the vision. I'm all for it. But why else would Kogani announce this? I don't feel like he goes out to other characters and he's like, hey, Yuji, Reggie Star is dead. Hey, Hashimo, Reggie Star is dead. They don't care. But he went and told him, like, out of sympathy? Out of care? To let you know your loved one's dead? It's an interesting choice. And then he's like, okay, I'm done. The fact that he was just doing this because of Reggie is fueling the ship as well. I'm just saying. And Takaba's like, well, what happened? What are we doing? He's like, I'm going home. I'm sick of this. He's like, okay, well, take a bath, brush your teeth, and also give me your points. I love that he's like, hey, if you could give me your points, that would be great. It would be interesting if Kazenoki gave him his points, or at least most of them. I don't know if he's going to get the points, though. So his curse technique is called Comedian, which relates to the fact that he was the comedian back in episode 3. And here's the thing. It says, whatever he's convinced is funny, a reality. So if it's funny to him, then it's going to become reality. That's scary. That's a really scary technique. The thing about it is, it connects with his character so well because he was afraid he wasn't funny and he was trying to be funny for the audience and now he is. So there's that going for him. But this line here, where it's like, it's a technique capable of opposing even Gojo. The fact that he's as strong as Gojo. So this is the first thing. Strong as Gojo. Enough to oppose Gojo, but you know what I mean. He's strong enough to face Gojo. There was a few talks of that with him and Yuuta by Tengen in this, which I feel are very relevant. We should bring them up. That's terrifying. Also, now that that's been put out in the open, Gojo would hate fighting this guy. Gojo would be like Kazenoki and just be like, we're good. He'd probably just give up and be like, so are you going to hurt people? No? Okay, let's stop fighting then. Also, Megumi being glad that Takaba's not his opponent definitely is proving itself right now. But he doesn't know anything about his own technique. So he has no clue. These are all scary things. These are all very scary things. The fact, because like with Reggie's technique, it's a great contrast of Reggie versus Takaba. Reggie knew every ins and outs of his technique, how it worked, what he did, what he had to do. Like, Reggie had combed his technique completely from start to finish. With Takaba, he has no clue how his technique even works. He's just like, I'm just having fun, being an entertainer. The fact that he has no clue leaves a lot of ground open for things to go awry, and I'm like, I don't know. But we're going to talk a little bit more about Takaba and the whole Gojo thing in a little bit. So yeah. So then we have Remi. Remi in this moment, like, girl, she's like, I don't get it. Ever since I became an adult, I hardly understand anything. I'm like, okay, what are we doing? Okay, so she seems like a young adult. Maybe she's 20. So she's not that much older than Megumi, who Megumi has no time for romance right now. We don't have time. I liked how they made her, like, dress herself up and look very shoujo in this moment. I heard all men are wolves. So we basically established she's not the worm. Officially. We've established it a while ago, but this kind of, like, cements it into the ground. But it was always wolves who took care of the confusing stuff for me. I don't like women like this, if I'm being quite frank with you all. I watch a lot of influencer videos. And I watch a lot of videos of, not influencers themselves, but of people like doing compilations about influencers and the things that are problematic about them, because it's just kind of fascinating to me, because I'm never on TikTok practically at all. But women that trust in men that could hurt them because they make things easy for them, I don't like that at all, because I think it gives, one, women have had to fight for centuries to prove that we are just as capable, even though historically we have been proven to be just as capable, intelligent as men on equal footing since the dawn of time as men, but we've had to constantly prove it. And so I feel like this type of character with Remi, it makes the woman in me like irk a little bit, because I'm like, you're setting us back. Being like, oh, I just have it feels very much like the women that just, they don't want any financial security for themselves, so they just have like a guy take care of all their stuff for them. And I'm like, girl, what if that don't work out? Then you're gonna be screwed. That's the type of person that she is. And it really frustrates me, because I'm like, I don't like women like her. And she's like, I just want the men to take care of things for me. If those wolves would handle everything, then I don't have to think about anything. I hate that type of character. And there are women like that in real life, and I'm like, you're making us all look bad. Stop it. Educate yourself, bitch. Like, just, it frustrates me so much. And so she's like, because I'm so cute. Again, if this was the end of Remi's story, I would be fine with that. I did think for a second that as she was running, she's like, the wolves always. They always. I really thought that Megumi was going to kill her. I thought Megumi was going to kill her, and that was going to be the case. But then he hears the voice of his sister say, don't. And he's like, shut up, sister. And he can't do it. He can't do it at the end of the day, right? And I don't think it's because she's a woman that he can't do it, but because she really, at the end of the day, didn't have the malice that Reggie and Kazenoki and the others had. She was just a pawn. She was just being used by Reggie and being taken advantage of by him, and she fell for his traps. And then at the end of the day, Megumi's like, I really can't kill you because you've just been a pawn in all of this. You're not an actual player. I mean, she is a player, But in his mind, like in the grand scheme of things, his sister would be mad if he killed someone like that. And so she's like, you'll spare me. That's the thing too that kind of messes with Remi, because she's like, she's always around these dangerous men, and she's like, I go along with what they want because then they'll protect me, and it's this weird toxic like compromise that we've got worked out. But for her to encounter someone like Megumi who spares her, even though he very much could be the wolf, that he spares her because he just doesn't want to use her. She doesn't know what to do with that. She doesn't know what to do with men that won't use her. And there's an aspect of me that feels bad for Remi, and I feel sorry for her. But there's another aspect where I'm like, girl, get some self-sufficiency. Like, come on, step up. And it just frustrates me. But yeah, and then he said, shut up, sister. So then Angel shows up. Angel shows up. I thought Angel was in another colony. Nope, they're not. They're here. Angel is with Megumi, which, okay, can we stop for a hot second? I'm about to talk a little bit about Chainsaw Man spoilers. I'm about to talk about Chainsaw Man spoilers for a hot second. I'll put it up here. Chainsaw Man spoilers. Please skip to when you don't see this anymore. I'll try to timestamp it below as well. I'll try to timestamp it for the video. I know that Gege Akutami and Tatsuki Fujimoto are buddies, coffee pals, bosom buddies. They go hang out together all the time, watch movies together. They both were like, hey, we got this angsty, dark-haired character that's filled with ennui and remorse. You want to, like, team him up with an angel? Because I was instantly like, what is this, Aki Angel? Don't be testing my ships, Gege. Don't be testing my ships. I've just now in this season cemented the Yuji and Megumi ship. Don't be giving me options where I can test it with this angel. Don't be doing that for me. Again, I'm a little bit nervous because we don't know anything about Angel. Now, did Angel watch Megumi's actions as he spared her? Did Angel watch those actions as he spared her and then was like, you're not a bad person, and has seen that and will act accordingly? I don't know. I don't know anything about Angel. I don't trust Angel because I don't know anything about them, and Gege likes to work with a motif, so I don't know what to do. Will Angel nullify Megumi's techniques? I don't know. Also, Kogani's wings kind of look like Angel's. A little worried about that because that means Kenjaku might have taken inspiration from Angel, which means they might know each other better than we think. Or it could just be Gege's drawing style. Don't know. But I don't know. Right now I'm very cautious about Angel and I don't want to trust them. But maybe they'll heal Megumi. Maybe they'll heal him and then talk to them. Maybe Megumi can convince Angel, because the whole goal was for Megumi to get Angel to agree to help free Gojo. Here are my reservations with all of this right now with Angel and Megumi. Megumi is not really a negotiator. Also, I think it would be better if Yuuta or Yuji found Angel, because I think they could talk them into things better. Megumi, I'm sure, would plead his case because he cares a lot for Gojo and wants to free him. Whether or not Angel believes Megumi, or if Angel can sense that Megumi is a liar and not a morally good character, I don't know. We don't know anything about them except their technique. So I am very apprehensive of if Megumi is going to be able to be effective in convincing Angel to help them. But maybe Angel will have seen what Megumi did with Remi and sparing them and will believe in Megumi. We don't know. We don't know what Angel's seen. We don't know how this is going to go. I'm cautiously wary about all of this, but we'll just see. So, meanwhile, we have the Sendai colony. So, November 12th. What date is it now? In this, November 12th in Sendai is where Yuuta is. I need to look at the timeline. Okay. I need to know the date that Megumi killed Reggie. Is there anybody? Okay. On November 12th. Okay, so it's the same. Real quick, I'm sorry. Moderators, don't hate me. I just looked up when did Megumi kill Reggie Star, and it was on November 12th. Okay, so this is the same day. So, because it is the same day, but it says 11/28. So, is that before or after Yuuta knew about the points transfer? I don't know. We're not entirely sure about that. But in the Sendai colony of the Miyagi Prefecture, it says that there was... I'll get past Angel here. So in the Sendai colony, events progressed quickly, far outstripping those of the Tokyo colony. Yeah, things were getting pretty hectic, which Yuuta being in the midst of all that sounds about right. So this is where the dinosaurs and stuff were, that we were in the naked mole rats. So we have one. I mean... there's a part of me that feels like it's such a waste that you had this guy, Druv Lakdawala. You had them that had 91 points, and Yuuta just killed them, so those 91 points are reduced down to 5. The part of me that was like this with Maki, I was like, man, those 91 points would have been real good, but they're gone now. This is his second incarnation. Okay. An old man who conquered the archipelago, like, civil war of Wa. Well, he's dead, so... He has 2 autonomous Shikigami, which are those giant naked mole rats. Okay. Yep. They're gross. Okay. This guy, Ryu Ishigori. So he's dead. Ryu Ishigori. He was up on the rooftop back at the beginning when the culling game started. He has 77 points. Okay. He was up there. He looks straight out of Space Dandy, looks straight out of Yu Yu Hakusho, has the delinquent haircut. I thought that this was Hikari back at the beginning of the season. When we saw a figure on the rooftop smoking, I was like, oh, that's Hikari. And so, no, he's a totally different character. Okay. So there's that. He has a smoking problem. He has 77 points. We don't know exactly what he's doing. He's just sitting there smoking. Like, what's his technique? What does he do? He is the cannon with the greatest cursed energy output among the players. Oh, at the end of his hair looks like a cannon. That's cool. That's fun. He also has purple eyes. Don't trust anybody with purple eyes. So, okay, he has a lot of energy output. That seems like it would be an interesting matchup against Yuuta, because Yuuta has a lot of output as well. So... we're going to see that, I guess. Then there's this character, Takako Uro. So we're going to put them over here. Takako Uro has 70 points. They look like... here's the thing. Ryu Ishigori has 77, meaning he's killed some non-sorcerers. The one guy, Druv, that died had killed some non-sorcerers as well. Because... Yuta's is a multiple of 5. He's not killed any non-citizens, as one would expected. Takako Uro, though, we don't know if they've killed any non-sorcerers because they have 70. It's an even number. She was originally the captain of the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad. She looks like a superhero. She looks very much like, she's reminding me of Starfire from Teen Titans. Sun, Moon, and Star Squad of assassins under the Fujiwara clan. What was the Fujiwara clan? They were important. We've mentioned them before in this. If the Fujiwaras have not been mentioned in this series, that name has been mentioned in another series that I'm watching on the channel. So maybe that's where I'm getting that from. A squad of assassins. Her being an assassin, fun times. And she can allow her to manipulate the sky. That's everything. So maybe it's just like the atmosphere, the air around her. And that's why you see like the air kind of showing waves around her figure. So she can just manipulate the atmosphere in close proximity to her. Because the sky would be everything. So maybe it's just in close proximity. But still, that's pretty effective. And she's an assassin, so that's not going to be easy to take out. Although Rika might be of help in that sense, maybe. And then there is Kurorushi. Kurorushi has 54 points, meaning they've killed non-sorcerers. And they're this creepy-ass cockroach. Don't like that at all. Don't like cockroaches. They're gross. But they're a cockroach cursed spirit. So here's the thing. This is not a sorcerer vessel. This is not a sorcerer that's been awakened. Like Ryu seems like an awakened sorcerer like Takaba. Takako appears either like a vessel assassin, kind of. But Kuroshi, this is just a cursed spirit that is special grade that Geto had inside of him. The part that worries me about this damn cockroach, because here's the thing, you know what's stereotypical? That cockroaches can survive nuclear blasts. And Reggie's talked about bombs going off. I don't like any of this. Nope, I don't like it here. Because the fact that this cockroach is hiding in the waters under the surface waiting to move until the moment they've been told to by Kenjaku, I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Nope, 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 nope. It's lying dormant until certain conditions are met, meaning it's just killed people that have come up next to it to try to take it on. So they had this 4-way stalemate until Druv dies, and then Yuuta shows up. And they make a point of Yuuta, current points 35, before or after, 3 months after the night parade of 100 demons, which was volume 0, he had blossomed into a special grade sorcerer. The fact that he again, a modern sorcerer rivaling Gojo. Gojo's biggest rival. Yep. I mean, the whole thing about Kenjaku forcing evolution has essentially happened in the culling games. I mean, Takaba, Higuruma, I'm assuming Ryu, it's all forced evolution on their part with them becoming sorcerers using Mahito's ability in the culling games. So his goal is kind of already happening, but it's also forcing the sorcerers who already exist to level up very quickly, like Yuuta, like Megumi. So what makes me nervous is Tengen talking about how much Yuuta rivals Gojo. That makes me nervous in unusual abilities. Yuuta is such a creepy kid. He really is. Look at that shot. The dead eyes that he has. Gojo has the creepy doll eyes. Yuuta has the creepy dead eyes. Like, Yuuta is such a sweet kid, but he's a weirdo. Like, he is a flat out weirdo. Like, Yuji would be making all the friends in school because he's like that popular jock character that everybody's like, oh my gosh, what a nice guy. Let's just be friends with him. Yuta's creepy. He's sweet. Very sweet. But he has like a Junpei creepiness to him, right? Yeah, in unusual abilities. Here's my fear. If we're going to talk about this. Here, I feel like I've talked about Doomsday scenarios throughout this series. We're going to talk about it again, so hear me out. I wonder if Kenjaku's goal is whoever is the top culling game player are going to be choices for him to steal their bodies. Because, let's face it, we've talked about this in previous episodes, Geto's kind of outlived his purpose. Geto's body has outlived his purpose. He was able to capture Gojo using Geto's body. Mission accomplished. He has all the spirits within him that, like the cockroach spirit he's brought out in this game, and he was able to manipulate using Mahito's ability. He's done all that. I think he needs to keep Geto's body long enough for the culling games to be over. So just in case he needs to whip out curse manipulation spirits that he's collected through Geto's body. But then, when he's done with the culling games, when everything's reached the height of it, and like Reggie said, when everything gets to a point where there's only the strong sorcerers left that are at the end of the day, then what's he gonna do? My theory is that then he's gonna like try to tag all of the sorcerers against the one he wants to take the body for and have them kill him, and then he's gonna go in and take the body. My concern is that this focus on Yuuta of being like rivaling Gojo concerns me, because that seems like a body that Kenjaku would want, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I've talked about him maybe wanting Gojo. I've talked about him maybe wanting Yuuta. I don't like that. The only silver lining is that they've established there's a character that is also on the same level as Gojo that I don't think Kenjaku would want to take the body of, and that's Takaba. I think Takaba being able to rival, you have essentially, you took this episode to set up that Yuuta is someone on par with Gojo, which makes them look very, one of two things. Either Yuuta is looking like prime real estate for Kenjaku if he wants to keep Gojo sealed and take over someone's body. Yuta's prime residence. And what a way to torture Gojo if you took his student's body. Like, what a way to torture him. That would just be like, that would be like a double stabbing as soon as you came out, right? Because here's the thing. Let's say Megumi and Yuji and them convince Angel to release Gojo. And then Kenjaku's like, well, how am I going to fight Gojo? Well, I could take the body of somebody that could rival Gojo to fight Gojo, and that would be Yuuta. So there would be that. But then it's like, well, who would stop? But let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say Kenjaku takes the body of Gojo and Yuta's still out there. Who else could rival Gojo? Well, Takaba. Or let's say Kenjaku convinces Takaba to fight Yuuta or Gojo and he doesn't take any of their bodies. Let's say that's the case. Well, that's still problematic. So it's like, I feel like Gege is setting up, hey, we assume Gojo is the strongest sorcerer. Yuuta is the same strength as Gojo. So is Takaba. Takaba can rival Gojo as well with his technique. So something is being set up in this episode with Yuuta, with Takaba, with Gojo, with Kenjaku. I don't like it. I'm worried about it. I'm nervous about it. I don't like where it's headed. And we're going to focus on Yuuta next week. So I'm like, Yuuta, please let bad things not happen to you, please. But I don't know. Reggie has planted so many seeds of doubt in me about this series. Reggie's job as a character has been fulfilled. He has planted a lot of seeds of doubt. And now I'm nervous where it's going. So anyway, I'm curious to know what you all think about this episode. Please, no spoilers. Y'all know I will get to it. I'm going to map out and see what we're going to be doing with the manga maybe between now and when the new cour comes out, probably in January. I feel like January is accurate, but I've talked for like an hour and a half about this episode. It was so good! But I can't wait to hear your thoughts down below as well. Please give a like to this video. Please comment. Help a girl out with the algorithm. And in any case, I will be back. I've got a cosplay picked out for next week. I had a cosplay picked out for next week. We'll see if I change it or not, but in any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and Naoya and I are going to go and get some more coffee, and we'll see you all next week for the cour finale, the halfway point of Season 3 of Jujutsu Kaisen. Bye.